Welcome to the Manga Bin. Today we're reading volumes 1 through 2 of Homunculus. Please enjoy.
Welcome back, everybody. So
Welcome.
Homunculus, written by Hideo Yamamoto. I can say Yamamoto, but that first name is a confusing.
Kind of interesting.
Kind of interesting. So you might know him from Homunculus. Homunculus seems to be his most famous work, but he's also done things like Hikari Man, Adam and Eve, and Sayonara Karada, which I've never heard of. Maybe worth checking out based on at least what at least I felt after reading this. But we covered volumes 1 and 2, although I read the omnibus volumes 1 and 2, which was actually volumes 1 through 4. King actually knew the assignment and read volumes 1 through 2. But yeah, so
prepping. You're prepping for the next episode of Homunculus volume 2 and 3 and 4,
or whatever it is. However we decide to format that episode. But jumping right into it, Homunculus. So essentially, very basic plot here is it follows a homeless man named Nakashi who runs into a rather interesting individual named Ito. And Ito is a med student who drills a hole into Nakashi's head, and he begins to see homunculi, or is what they call them is homunculi in the manga. But he kind of sees, I don't know, he starts seeing supernatural beings that are inside of everybody, like they're dark thoughts. But I guess jumping right into the story.
Well, wait. Can we talk about first impressions and what we were expecting, like jumping into it? So, what I want to say is, just like looking at the cover and the art and stuff prior to actually sitting down and like starting my read of this, it is not at all what I was expecting it to be, like at all.
Yeah, no, it wasn't what I was expecting either.
I was expecting just blatant horror manga and very like kind of Junji Ito type, like I guess plot and narrative. But what I was met with was just such a like beautiful story. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. And I mean, I'll talk more later about like why I enjoyed it and like certain points. But it was something that like Jones was like, "Oh, let's read this." And I was like, "Ah, crap, I have to read this." Like,
yeah,
this is gonna be so not up my alley. And this has probably been one of the most enjoyable mangas. And
I can't say I'm too off from you, King. Going into it, I actually had my notes labeled homunculus in parentheses horror because the synopsis seems very horror-esque. The cover art and even the beginning, like when you're reading it, it feels very much like a horror story. It doesn't.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this dude's about to get murdered. He's about to like this whole thing. Like that was my thought process. Was this character is living in this car? He's about to be killed. Like that was my whole like every page. I was like, something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen.
And then things do happen.
It happens, but it kind of benefits him. It's kind of like I don't know. The dude you're kind of skeptical is this Ito guy who brings this proposition to the main character. And in my mind, I was like, I don't trust this guy because the main character doesn't trust him.
I don't know if I still trust him.
I don't know if I do either. But in my mind, it's like you kind of like him in a weird way where it's like you don't trust him, but he's also
a very lovable character.
He's funny and he pushes like almost like a welcoming environment for the main character compared to him living alone. He's like, oh, I'll pay for your meals, I'll pay for you a place to stay, like I'll offer you this, which adds to that like untrusty aspect to it because you're like, oh, what's he want?
Yeah, like,
but on the other hand, it might just be him being a chill dude, and it might just be him being like, this dude's doing so much for me, I'm giving back.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, talking kind of about the story and how it unfolds in volume 1 through 2. So we're essentially met with this Nakashi guy. You don't know his name until later on, though. But his name's Nakashi, and he's in his car sleeping, and that's the beginning. And he essentially wakes up, travels into this park, and starts brushing his teeth. And you can tell he's homeless. He's living out of his car. And then we have a supporting character. His name's Ken. He's in the park and he's at,
Local
yeah,
homeless man.
local homeless man, local bum. And they kind of start a little dialogue. And kind of right from the get-go, they're just kind of living in this park. It's like a homeless encampment, right? And it's immediately from the get-go, Nakashi's just not the same. And you begin to kind of learn that he actually, what's the word? He's newer to the homeless life, and everyone kind of finds him a bit like a good-hearted but odd. They don't find him as being, one of them per se.
And I wanna add, when he's talking to Ken, he refers to himself as like a painter in his like first job, or a writer, something like that, some artsy job.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a like kind of key pivotal moment, because you see him like talking about like his job, whatever. And then he goes and he talks to another homeless man, and he says a completely other job.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh yeah, I was a mechanic. And then he talks to another homeless man. It's, oh, I was a school teacher.
Yeah.
And so you have this narrative of the main character is not trustworthy, and that adds to it, because you're like, well, who is this guy? Why is he homeless? Where does he come from? What's his backstory? Because you don't know, because you don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And
No,
it
even
adds a
now,
unpredictable nature to that character.
4 volumes in for me, because I read the omnibus, I'm not going to spoil anything. But even then, it's like you kind of maybe know like a bit more about him, but the whole time he's lying. And there's actually a scene which you read. It was in volume 1, I think, and they're having like a meal. All the homeless people are having a meal together, and he brings them alcohol and he eats it and he's like, all right, well, that was a great meal, guys, bye. And he leaves, and then all the homeless people are like, yeah, he's just a liar, don't trust him. Like he's a good guy and he'll watch your back and he does nice things for everybody, and he's like not a threat per se, but he just lies and lies and lies.
Yeah.
So like,
which leads to him after the meal throwing it up because it was
yeah,
so bad.
he's like,
Even
oh,
though he
that
said it
was a
was like,
great
oh, it's
meal,
great.
throws it up in the toilet.
And then he's like, man, I wish I had some McDonald's. And like drives his car around and is like, I don't have money.
Yeah.
And so this man is like on the brink of like, I don't know, he has this car which he really cares about. It's very, and I want to state like, this man is so in tune with his surroundings that he can like, I guess like sense vibrations and like the smells and like all he's very in tune with his senses, where he can tell something is up with his car and everything of that nature.
Yeah, he right from the get-go, when he starts his car for the first time, he kind of goes through not really a ritual, but that's the best way I can explain it. But he is turning the key in his car. He's trying to feel how the car is vibrating. He's trying to listen to the sounds that the car is making to get his car started. And he essentially is hanging out in his car one night. And this is one of the best panels in the manga, I think, thus far. This guy comes up. You see him filming him in the woods, actually. It's kind of creepy. He's like getting creep shots on our boy Nakashi. And this guy comes up and he has like long fingernails and they're black, and he's got like a skull ring on, and he knocks on the window of the car. And then like there's the panel and it's like you see this guy like through the glass of the car, and he looks so evil.
Yeah.
He looks so evil. And then he like rolls down his window, and then it shows like the full face of Ito. And then he just kind of like, he looks like kind of like a goth dude, but he looks like normal. He's just like, yo, what's up? Like he's so friendly after it. But
from what I was reading about like the description and stuff of the manga, I thought it was kind of going to be like I want to say like almost Chainsaw Man-esque. I thought this man was just going to drill into him in the car as like a serial murderer, and then the main character like experience the like psychic type stuff secondary. I was thinking it was like this dude like is kind of like half dead, half alive type like.
No, he's just kind of like an alternative rocker fashion guy. But essentially, this guy who you learn his name's Ito, he's talking about how he's a med student and how he wants to perform a procedure called trepanning on our main character here. And apparently there's some fringe scientific thing going around, and he wants essentially to find a willing person who will let him do this kind of like gray area, haha, get it, brain, gray matter. Anyways, this gray area of law that's not really illegal, but no one really wants to do it, but somebody who will let him do it. So he's going and pestering homeless people to see if they're willing to. And he offers he offers Nakashi 700,000 yen to drill a hole in his head. So just a quick explanation of what trepanning or trepanation is it's actually the oldest surgical procedure in the world. And that was kind of neat to see it involved here. But it was done by like cavemen and stuff. And we have skulls from way back when about like that were trepanned. And it was used, people theorize, because we don't have writing, it's cavemen doing this, that it was used to cleanse the soul of evil spirits. So it plays into it. And it plays into this like kind of like punk, kind of like, freaky goth dude.
Yeah.
That he'd be into that type of stuff,
And he explains that like the procedure is trying to like, I guess, enhance the person's like natural and like almost spiritual abilities to do like psychic, like esper type stuff, I guess.
Yeah. And of course, Nakashi has a brain in between his ears, so he says, "No, I'm not going to let you drill a hole in my head. That's stupid." And goes off.
And then Ito, being the man that he is, which is, it adds to his untrustiness, gets his car taken away.
His car gets towed.
So the main dude's like, "You took my car," and he's like, "I mean, maybe, but like, here's money and I'll pay to get your car back." And he's like, "Fine, you got it. Like, I'll do it. Well, my hands are tied."
And his car is the one thing that he still has that like matters to him. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of like, I need to get my car back. I have to get it back. So he finds Ito and he's like, "Okay, whatever you want, I'll do it. Like I'll do this procedure for 700,000 yen." And then Ito's kind of like, "Yeah, well, I'm the reason your car got towed and I'll pay for it to get it back." Like, because, he explains that Nakashi is the perfect patient, the perfect dude for the job. So there is kind of a certain level of like, he wants Nakashi. He doesn't want any of these other homeless guys. He sees something in them.
Which I think is also kind of added because he takes Nakashi to like a nice restaurant at the top of this apartment complex, and like the doorkeeper knows who Nakashi is and is like, "Oh, welcome, I haven't seen you in a couple weeks." And they go up to the top and he's like, "Oh man, I've missed this place." Like, it's, that this man has lived a higher end lifestyle compared to where he is at now.
He's had like a fall from grace almost. And you don't know a whole lot about him, like what we were talking about earlier, right? He's kind of untrustworthy. He lies a lot. But that he does have a certain high society kind of background. He's not your normal riffraff that you're seeing in the homeless encampment. But before we move on, the kind of homeless encampment is across the street from this nice hotel, and it's used as like a juxtaposition, kind of this thing where you have this park that's just all in destitute, and then you have this really nice luxury thing. And Nakashi, his car is parked in the middle of it, so you kind of like see this like visual thing. And I think they even mention it in the manga, like, "Oh, you can't, leave." Like you can't leave your old life behind you. Like, you even park in between, your old life and your new life and things like that. But one thing that I really like talking here is the homeless park felt like a completely different world reading the manga. Mm-hmm. It did such a great job. Like, when he was in the park interacting with the homeless men, you felt like he was in a completely different world than like just the park being part of the world. Like, it felt so disconnected, such like an alien place. And they did a really good job creating that sort of not mindset, but creating that setting where it's just like, I don't know. You kind of get what I'm saying here, King. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you felt that when you were reading it.
Oh no, I completely know what you mean.
Yeah. And then beyond that, the car being kind of his escape, his form of escapism was a nice touch, and it was done very tastefully. And just the whole aspect of how they approached the homeless encampment and him as a homeless man was really neat and was really well executed. But after agreeing with Ito to go through this procedure, you find out a bit more about him. He's the son of a very wealthy doctor, which is why he looks the way he does. Because I guess he doesn't have to hold a job; he can just kind of look crazy and irrespectable, and it doesn't matter because he has money. But he's a medical student, and he just wants to try something out, I guess. But essentially, they go to his apartment after dinner's all said and done, and they drill a 3 millimeter hole into Nakashi's skull, kind of up at the front. And he's like, okay, so in the next 10 days, we're going to run all these tests on you and see if you develop supernatural abilities. And Ito leaves. Nakashi kind of searches his apartment, finds a file on various people who have been trepanned in the past. And there are various, what am I trying to say? Various reactions to it, various results, you might say, to.
Most are unpleasant. Like there's several cases where it just does nothing, and there's several cases where like either they committed suicide or were locked up due to it just driving them insane.
Yeah, and it's about a
So you
third. About
kind
a
of
third of the people go insane.
and you kind of see that like the reveal of the main character kind of realizing what he signed up for, but also kind of not believing it at the same time. And I think that was a neat
Yeah,
part.
and one thing I kind of enjoyed seeing was how Nakashi really kind of toys around with Ito initially, pretending like he immediately sees ghosts and things like that, and kind of freaks him out and is like, "No, stupid, I don't see none of that. Like, grow up." But over time, that changes. So Nakashi very quickly, I think like the next day, even I want to say, or maybe the first day
Yeah,
he doesn't like notice anything different, but the day after he does. But he
it's because
realizes,
he is told by Ito that he needs to, I guess, get more in tune with his senses. And the way that they have him doing that is by covering his left eye to pretty much kind of like balance the two halves of one whole
yeah,
between the real world and kind of the like spiritual plane almost. And so the main character is like turning these cards and he's like kind of locking in and kind of showcasing his like supernatural abilities. And then Ito's like, "Oh, well, have you tried doing this?" And the main character does it, and he immediately starts seeing people as like monsters. And
yeah,
I thought that was really interesting to like. It just kind of happens.
yeah, it's not something that like he sees something weird and then a different thing that's also kind of weird and it like cascades down into him like seeing this. It's like immediately just like when he covers his left eye, he sees the homunculus, and it's just he's never tried that before. And the second, I forget what exactly is the catalyst. I'm kind of looking now. I forget, but there's a point where he just like covers his left eye, and then all of a sudden, it's like immediately he's like seeing
He's like
monsters.
walking down the street, and he sees a guy that looks kind of weird, and then he like walks past him. He's like flat stamped,
Yeah,
and it was
like
like
what
I don't know.
an
That was
cool
just such a
person.
neat. I mean, I guess it's a scene, but it was like a neat part in the volume, just because it really shows how out of his depth the main character is and how quickly his life is changing.
Yeah, no, it's real interesting. So it's kind of like they're doing ESP tests to see if he has ESP, and he almost like he kind of does, it implies, and he does that by covering his left eye, and then it's like they when they part ways and he's in the streets alone and like something hits him in the eye and he like closes his left eye and then just starts seeing all the people on the street as like monsters, and really freaky, really well done. And they're honestly kind of comedic in certain aspects too, when you
Hmm.
see the different people and how they interact. And he gets kind of into his first, I guess, altercation, where you kind of start to see the, what am I trying to say here? You start to see his superpower almost.
Hmm. Because
I guess you could
he's
call it.
walking down the street of Kabukicho, which is like a famous, like, I guess, entertainment and like light district in Japan. And so he's walking down, and it is the like main area in like almost every Yakuza game. So he immediately bumps into a Yakuza mob boss, and this mob boss is like, "I'm gonna cut off your finger because you bumped into."
Well, he like spills his coffee on him and like
Or he spills
destroys his drink
coffee. Yeah,
because he's like trying to like come to terms with this. So he's like getting
yeah.
rid of the
He's
drink.
like tripping out.
Yeah, he's tripping out hard, and then accidentally spills his drink on this Yakuza guy. And immediately he's like, "Okay, well, we're cutting your finger off. Screw you." And he closes his eye and he sees
A
the
Gundam.
he sees a Gundam, but he sees the Yakuza's homunculus, right? And it's kind of interesting because you see the Yakuza leader's homunculus is actually a child within this
The
Gundam.
suit of armor.
And he's going to cut off Nakashi's hand, but really the homunculus is cutting his own pinky off. And his
And
pinky
so
is scarred and it's broken.
the main character keeps like referencing the sickle that he's about to use to cut off his hand, because it's transmorphed from a knife to a sickle whenever he closes his eye.
Yeah.
And he's not trying to cut his pinky, he's cutting his own. And so the main character is like, well, why are you trying to cut your own pinky with a sickle? And the mob boss is like,
Yeah.
what do you mean a sickle? Like, whatever. And the main character's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to cut off your pinky with a sickle? And it kind of resonates with the mob boss. And he starts crying.
Yeah, and the kid starts crying. Like the
Yeah.
homunculus starts crying. He's like, "Why are you crying? Like, there's nothing to be sad about." And then
He opens his eyes.
yeah, the Yakuza keeps getting like more and more like aggressive. Like, what do you mean I'm not crying and all this stuff? And then all of a sudden, the Yakuza boss just starts crying, turns around, and just leaves.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done with you, whatever. Like, I'll see you again. Like, threatens him, whatever. Walks off. And I kind of want to touch on the homunculus part, because after this scene, you kind of realize what a homunculus is.
Yeah,
and I think
it's just kind of like goofy.
At first, you're like, oh, you see monsters, but what it is you are seeing the characters, or not characters, but the people's insecurities and regrets and everything that they like, the bad energy around and within them. And I thought that was so cool, because it's not really like, it's supernatural in a way, but at the end of the day, it's just people.
No, and this is where it really departs from, especially the art style. I figured it was going to be much more horror-esque, where, you know, you have these very just like gritty, high detail panels, and you feel very uneasy. You feel very disturbed. So I was preparing to essentially be thrown into a horror manga, but instead it was more of this like battle.
They use that
inner demons
art style to showcase that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool. I think that is the point in which I was like, this is a really good manga, because the way that he utilizes his art style and his world building as one. It's not just a shock factor, it is how the main character perceives what he sees.
No, and that's a really good point, because in a lot of manga, the art style, even if it's really good, doesn't really play into the feelings or the story itself. It's more so just the medium that they're telling the story, and it's cut A to B. Okay, I need to draw. I can draw well, or I know somebody who can draw well. We draw well, and you can visually see the story. Whereas in this one, and this is kind of where you get a bit of an advantage with a single author
artist
on the volume, right? The guy who wrote the story also drew it, right? And he uses the art to perpetuate the feelings that you should be feeling. Like, for example, Ichi the Witch, when we did that one,
I was going to bring it up. The art
the
style was great,
the art was great in it, but the art doesn't
but
actually play into the story. It's just art.
it kind of holds it back in certain ways.
Really, you think so?
Versus, I think a little bit. I think a little bit. I think I don't know. It's the way that it's comedy is definitely comedy directed towards a like I guess younger audience, like you said last episode. But this comedy is the characters don't change how they look. It's just what they say and their facial expressions. And that's how you perceive comedy in this.
Mm.
And I thought that was really neat is the like the comedic parts are still just the characters being themselves. It's
And
not a little gag. It's straight on
even
its
the
nose.
excessive things, like for example, one thing you'll see if you pick this, I recommend picking this volume or these two volumes
Absolutely.
and reading them on Amazon. You can get the omnibus pretty cheap, but where I'm going with this is there are certain things that are over the top, especially with like Nakashi, and like he'll be sweating because something's really freaking him out, and it's like the most excessive sweating you've seen, like waterfalls almost, and it's over the top, but it's still kind of like it gets your skin crawling because you're like, yeah, he just saw something that like realistically no human would sweat that much, but you still like, I don't know, the excessiveness of him sweating is done in a way that it even drives forward the weight
Narrative.
of the narrative. Really well done. And I mean, it's just, I wouldn't necessarily say it's perfectly drawn, but it's drawn in such a way that really drives the story. Like the speech bubbles and the words that you're reading is not the end of the story. You like reading through each panel visually is equally as significant. And that's just
And
something that blew me out. It blew my socks off. I'm not wearing socks right now. And I just held my foot up to the camera, just in case any of the listeners are wondering why King just laughed. See, King,
but
you're gonna have to
I
pay
want
for
to
that. I have to get my Cash
but
App, my PayPal.
I want to add. So I want to say that for like I hate to compare it to Ichi the Witch again,
Yeah, no, the
but
completely opposite.
you see a panel of Ichi the Witch, and you read the dialogue. If the art isn't in your face, I don't pay too much attention to it. Like I'm like, okay, cool. It's the characters are doing something, whatever. Like I don't really pay attention to it. This had me so captivated by each and every panel that I was like, what's going to happen next? What am I going to see? Because like we've said, it just pushes the narrative to another level that I feel like a lot of mangakas and all that stuff just aren't aware of in their storytelling. Like they'll just use the story or they'll like just push the narrative through that like that media or medium or whatever. Sorry. That they don't really take their time combining both the like written storytelling and the art to bridge the gap and create perfection like a masterpiece. Like this is so good. Before this, I don't know if this is the best manga I've ever read because I really like Chainsaw, but it is definitely close second, and we've only read the first two volumes.
Really? Okay.
And
I'm
that's
really glad I chose this then.
and
Like,
that's what's like I was at work and I was like first day Jones is like pick out like we're picking this. I go into work and I'm like, man guys, like I have to read this manga for my podcast. And I was talking to one of my coworkers. I was like, have you ever read this? And he was like, no, let me look at it. He's like, well, this looks weird. Like this looks like a weird like Junji Ito whatever. And I talked to another coworker who reads a lot of manga and he's like, you're reading Homunculus, like you're gonna love it. And I'm like, huh. And he's like, it's not what you expect. And then I read it. And I'm like
that's
reading
what
it
you
like
expect.
I'm reading it in a taxi. I'm reading it like on my way to work. Like I'm just reading it like as I'm going through. And I'd be like at the dinner table eating with coworkers. And I would just have to put it down. And I would just the whole rest of the evening, I'd be like, I gotta finish it. Like usually when I am reading a manga, I read it 3 hours before the podcast, and I'm like, oh, I have to cram this. This had me like man, we're only doing volumes 1 and 2 this week. Really? Like that's where
Yeah.
we have to stop there? Like what's gonna happen?
A very well done, manga. And I can say some stuff that I read that was quite similar to this in the past. So, kind of a cult manga. It's fairly well known, but I think it has more of a cult following. Is Ultra Heaven, and that one is not something that I think would really be good for the podcast. I don't think we'll ever do it, especially because it just kind of like dropped off. So by the time we actually filled an episode, it would just be like, okay, yeah, we think this, and by the way, the story's not finished. But it's the art style is really similar, where you feel it's very horrific, but it really isn't. But the art tells a big story, and as you go through the manga, the art changes, and it's a story about drugs, so you get a lot of like trips and drug things associated with it. But this seems like a much more, approachable and a much more efficient and well done implementation of a trippy story that keeps you on your toes, that you don't know exactly what's happening, but you know enough that you're following. Whereas like a story like Ultra Heaven or some other manga that I've read in the past do this as well, where they try to create a trippy or confusing story for the sake of having a confusing story, which is okay, but there's a lot of times not a execution of the story that takes that aspect and plays well into it. Like I read a lot, so like one book that I kind of didn't struggle to get through, but it was kind of left me confused, was like Dune Messiah. When I read Dune Messiah years back, and that was like the first, I guess, whodunit type thing where it implemented it well, where it was, you were confused, but you knew enough that the story kept going. And then by the end of it, all those ends got tied together. So that's like, Homunculus is leaving me wanting more, because I can see that there's something deeper and that I just need to uncover it page by page. It's doing that super well, and it keeps you like captivated and involved in the story.
See, I think it does, but part of me is deathly worried that it's just gonna drop.
Well,
that it's going to get repetitive, and that it's going to just lose what the main focus is. Because if I'm honest, there isn't really a main goal other than the main character just...
And there isn't, but I think because it is a 15-volume series and we're not even halfway through this, right? So I read the first 4 volumes on accident, so that's, not even a third of the way through. And there's a little bit of a story, right? And I can see where a plot, like a deeper plot, can form. And I don't want to necessarily say, because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but you can definitely see one form. But I will mention that I'm seeing a lot of recommendations here. And on the 3 not recommended, there's basically people saying that the synopsis and the was really good. The story could have been super good, but it has empty symbolism and it kind of fizzles out towards the end, is what I'm reading. And I am not really going in depth on these reviews because I don't want to spoil it for myself. But I can definitely see that happening, where you might have a very strong punch in the beginning that really drives the reader in. But then by the end, the author does kind of not allow it to fizzle out, but maybe loses momentum. But that's just kind of speculation. Like, it's, and then also when I'm looking at, the My Anime List entry for it, if there's 3 people who are saying that they don't like it, and then over 50 people saying they do like it, and then another 12 who are saying, oh, this isn't bad, like it does kind of fall short here and there, but overall, like I thought it was pretty good. So it's something that I'd have to read and really make a decision myself. I couldn't just take it at face value and say here, like, yeah, these reviews are right, because it's just, you can see the story has like so much more unfolding, and kind of going into that second half of what we read.
We need to talk about the plot for volume 2.
yeah, we need to talk about the plot for volume 2 because it does kind of lead into what I think the story will be. And we can kind of speculate here a little bit.
And
So,
what I want to say before we start is I liked Volume 1 more than I liked Volume 2. I thought Volume 2 was good. I feel like Volume 2, the same issue was tackled kind of the whole time, which wasn't the worst, but I feel like it was, what am I trying to say? It felt really short in a way.
yes, it did feel very short. And as I read further into the omnibus, volume 2 of the omnibus, which is volumes 3 and 4, also felt quite short. And I don't know if that's that the story was advancing quickly or that I was so engrossed.
That's I was gonna make a point. Because
Yeah,
I looked at the page count and they were practically the same.
yeah, the omnibus was like 600 pages long. And it was pretty much halfway through 300 some odd pages, and I was on volume 2. So it wasn't shorter page wise per se. So I don't know. I feel like the story just
Maybe I was just
encapsulated me.
engrossed.
Yeah, it engrossed me, and I just read through it, and it felt very quick. And that's where I think the story was going. But volume 2, kind of like you were saying, it covers really just one issue, and that is the Yakuza boss. So we talked about how Nakashi gets away from him basically by pressuring what he's seeing in his homunculus, and the Yakuza boss gets upset and goes away. And when he goes back to the streets to kind of walk around, and he does mention to Ito, there's a period here where he's like, hey, I'm seeing these things. This is what they look like. And he starts sketching them and drawing notes on them. And they kind of start unfolding. And this is when like their 10-day experiment kind of goes out the door. They had all this like stuff they were going to do. And like they start out by going to haunted places and that doesn't work and whatever. And they kind of find a new thing to pressure, right? And once they kind of finish this discussion, Ito and Nakashi, he goes back to the streets and gets kind of kidnapped by the Yakuza again. They find him, hey, our boss wants to see you again. You're coming with us, all this, stuff. And it's really interesting because he gets there and the Yakuza boss is quite calm.
Mm-hmm.
He's thinking like, okay, how do you know about these things? Why are you pressuring me about these really odd, kind of repressed memories almost? And there's the Yakuza boss is kind of trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
It's real interesting. And that's when kind of some comedy unfolds.
Yes.
So he's like, okay, well, I need to like feel you. Let me feel you. So Nakashi just starts feeling this dude up.
He starts just shoving him. And then he's like, whoa. And he's like, I'm not into you, but like, let me just do this. And he like shoves him again. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and then he does it again. And his like subordinate walks in.
And he's like, Nakashi's on his knees.
Like in front of the boss. It was so funny. And he shoves him again. He's like, no, like that's not what you think. And then he's finally like, I'm going to cut off your finger because you made me look bad in front of my guy. And he's like...
He's going to cut the guy's finger off because he didn't knock before he came into the room.
And then he starts seeing the robot again. Mm-hmm. And then he starts, I guess, kind of like...
Well, because as he's kind of pressuring the mob boss, his armor's falling off, and he begins to see this sad, naked little boy inside the suit of armor. And it's immediate. Like the symbolism really does hit. I wouldn't say that the symbolism is super complicated in the manga, at least not yet. Where it's kind of like this. There's this sad naked kid in this suit of armor. So it's obvious that the Yakuza boss kind of feels vulnerable, and he's putting on this suit of being the Yakuza because that's what makes him strong. And he's cutting off people's pinky, but this boy is trying to cut his own pinky off. So, that starts to develop. And Nakashi starts having his own flashbacks of a skateboard with blood on it. And it's kind of, you don't understand quite yet. And eventually they have this huge altercation that's leading to Nakashi being like, I know what you did. You cut your friend's finger off and it's been haunting you. And you want your pinky gone. And there's this whole finger cutting fetish, I guess you could say, that this guy has, is connected to this repressed memory of him accidentally committing a heinous act, a regrettable act that he doesn't want to remember. And he begins to really attack that. And you learn a bit about Nakashi, where he actually had a interaction where he pushed his friend when he was on a skateboard as a joke, but he ends up rolling into the street and getting hit by a car. And Nakashi does not like
feels that.
Yeah, he feels that guilt and doesn't like to think about it. But these two events are connected, not necessarily in the real world, but they're connected emotionally to one another, right? And he's using that to basically get to the mob boss. And finally, once they get to the bottom of it, the mob boss is like, okay, you know what? That's it. I'm quitting. Like, I'm not going to be a mob boss anymore, and I'm going to cut my own pinky off. And that's the whole reason why the kid is trying to cut his pinky off, because as a kid,
it's because he wants out.
Yeah, as a kid, he tried to cut his pinky off, and then as an adult, he wants out, and that's haunting him. And he's never been able to cut his pinky off. So finally, he says, like, this is the last pinky that I'll ever cut, and it's going to be my own. And through the help with Nakashi, he cuts his pinky off, and then they kind of part ways. He's like, this is it. Like, I'm done with this life. And then as he's walking off, Nakashi looks at him through his right eye, and he's just a normal guy. He doesn't have the homunculus connected to him anymore.
Which I thought was so good. It was such just like a beautiful, like, it kind of connects how the story is and how I think it's going. Where I think it's just going to be this dude trying to be like a good Samaritan in a way, just try to like solve people's issues.
He meets with Ito afterwards, and they begin to discuss what a homunculus really is. As the reader, you kind of already know based on what you see with the mob boss, but it fills in the gaps. And essentially, and this is an interesting plot point too. So the homunculus is essentially, something that is haunting people. Like, there's this old lady who like has no neck, and that's the only weird thing about her, is she has no neck. And it turns out that she was choked by her ex-husband, and she kind of has PTSD from that situation. And once they kind of like, they don't heal her per se, but Ito goes into and has a discussion with her, and she gets her neck back because she's able to put those bad memories to rest and put those bad things to rest. And you kind of learn that, everybody has this inner demon that follows them, and it needs to be exorcised, I guess, to put it into
which
terms.
You can take Ito talking to her two ways. One, anyone can help someone overcome tragedy and loss and like those feelings of like the inner demons. Number two, Ito could be the exact same thing as the main character.
Well, and
where he also sees it.
Is Ito asks me, he says, what do I look like? And then Nakashi covers his eyes, and Ito's just like a water. He's like gone. He's made out of water, so you can't see him. And then
I didn't even see the water on my visual when I was looking at.
Oh, I don't see anything. And then like Nakashi even looks at himself in the mirror, and there's like a whole like thing about like what Nakashi sees in the mirror. And I think he doesn't see anything in volume 2, but I don't want to spoil. I'm pretty sure he sees stuff in the next volume that he's growing a homunculus. So a little bit of a teaser into that. So it's kind of like everybody has these inner demons, and they kind of get to this point where the only homunculi that Nakashi can see are the ones that he himself is as well. So it plays into the mob boss, where the only reason he was able to see and help this man through this repressed memory is because he himself had a repressed memory that was adjacent to it. So he can only really see and help the people who he understands.
Which makes me kind of wonder if he had one before him helping the mob boss and kind of coming to terms with his own grief.
And then when he did, he doesn't see it anymore because he already helped it. But then no, I'm pretty sure he looks in the mirror before he helps the mob boss too.
Does he?
Or no, maybe he almost does and says, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because there is a point in the story where he's about to cover his eye, and he's like in a bathroom and in front of a mirror, and he's like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
and so my guess is he had that grief
Maybe.
following him. And once he kind of goes through his grief with the mob boss, kind of confessing what happened and coming to terms with it, I'm thinking he got rid of that burden on himself.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting thing that like might be a thing. It might be a manga in theory.
Yeah. A manga maybe.
Uh,
But no, it's really well done, and it was played off very well. And we're kind of left at the very end here with
he climbs
basically
into his car
he
and
climbs into his car and kind of giggles himself to sleep.
giggles and then starts sobbing because he starts having the memories of his friend again, and it's like, man, I really
Yeah, I really hurt somebody. And then we're kind of left the end of volume 2, and then if you read the omnibus, it goes on deeper and gets a bit
you
more.
can just spoil the next 2 volumes.
I'm not going to spoil the next 2 volumes, but it leaves on an interesting note of where the story is going to go. And that's something that you were saying, like, it doesn't seem like too much plot has been developed. And even through the second omnibus volumes, so volumes 3 and 4, there's not too much of a plot, but you start to see it form. Where I think where they're going to go with it is begin to help people overcome their homunculi for the sake of science, right? But that's going to open up Pandora's box. And I think you're going to learn a lot more about Ito, and you're going to learn a lot more about Nakashi, but there's going to be a whole plethora of kind of repressed memories and things that are going to, you know, like oil on water, the oil coming to the surface, right? It's going to turn into something a bit more grim, I think. But I think the plot initially is going to go that direction, where they're going to start a benevolent mission to heal people of their homunculus. However, that's going to play back into the main characters. That's where I think it's going to go based on what I've read. And then I'm reading a little bit forward. I think that's where it's going to go as well. Because
Yeah.
reading forward, there are people who they're like, okay, let's find somebody here who has a homunculus and let's kind of attack from that like angle. And Ito, not to spoil too much, but seems kind of sinister with it all. He doesn't seem like the best guy. So I think that it's going to play back into the main characters, and we're going to see something a lot darker happen. So that's what I think. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I think you kind of hit it on the nose. I could see it. I don't know. There's so many outcomes of what could happen. I don't know. I think the main character is kind of going to go crazy by the end of it and realize that he can't just play God and help everyone. But I also think, I don't know. I could also see they could add more supernatural elements into it. I don't know if they will, but I could see them doing like someone who has the opposite goal of what if they want more homunculuses, which I don't know if they're going to take that turn. I kind of like how it's supernatural in a way, but also just kind of like a metaphor.
Yeah, and I can see why a lot of people might review this negatively. There's a lot of people who think they're like a Reddit psychologists, and they get really upset when somebody tries to write something deep because it's not their exact thing. So I can see a lot of these negative reviews being misplaced and actually being more just like you're being pretentious by calling this pretentious kind of a deal. But really, I don't know where this manga is going to go. I don't know if the negative reviews are right or if they're wrong. I will say that it does get wordy and it does get into a lot of over explanation the further in you go. So there is a bit there are breadcrumbs that I can see those reviews being legitimate, but there's also
Which
breadcrumbs that I can see the positives being
I think the over
failing factors.
explanatory nature of it though is kind of like pivotal in a manga just because of how long it takes to release like manga volumes and chapters, depending on like if you're reading it like weekly or whatever. So I could see them using that as kind of just like, oh, refresher. Here's what we're dealing with already. We're going to
Yeah.
just explain it again.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of facets to why it's written the way it's written, for sure. But moving on from that, I mean, kind of our manga scores that we
Closing
give this the plot, the
closing
characters, and
remarks.
yeah, the closing remarks.
Okay, so plot, I would say 8.
You say okay, an 8 on the plot. So what about the characters?
I really like them. I think they're written complex, but they are also withholding information, which makes it even like more alluring to who they are, what their motivations are.
For sure.
I would give them an 8 as well.
An 8, okay.
Maybe an 8.5.
And then what about the art?
Art, I would say 9.
You'd say a 9. I thought you were going to say a
Yeah.
10 there. And then if we divide that by 3, we get an 8.3 is what you're grading it. And honestly, right now, I agree with that. I agree with everything you said. An 8, an 8, and a 9. The art, immaculate. The characters, pretty good. The plot, although it seems empty now, there's so much potential with it that
The world building, like, it's so it got a live action adaptation a couple of years back, and you could just tell why.
yeah,
Like the whole time you're like, man, this would make a really good just like
movie.
TV show or movie. Just because of the way it's written and how he shows you through his art what he wants you to see and feel. And I just think it's so just wonderfully done. And it's just, I don't know. I don't think there's many manga out there that does that. And it might just be I'm reading the wrong manga, but
Maybe.
I think this has been done with such a just like the art, like the artist and the author just really cares about his world. And you can see that. It's not like he's trying to market it. It's not like he's trying to make spin-offs or like really like, I mean, he wants to profit from it by the end of the day, but this is his joy. And you can tell that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He is very dedicated to the craft, and you can
And
see that.
I don't know. I really liked it.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
I really
And I
liked
was
it
I
as
was
well.
captivated by it the whole time.
And
And I'm not
your score
usually
averages out to what people are saying on the internet.
that's awesome.
So I think that you're
And they've read till the end.
and
So
they've read till the end.
that's that's good enough for me. And I am down to keep going and revisiting it. I mean, we'll probably read something else different next week just because
That's our thing.
my choice. But if you want to keep continuing this for your run, I am completely up to do so because I mean I've enjoyed this so much.
Yeah, no, it's a really good. It was a really well done manga. And I'm glad that I kind of poked my nose in, and I'd recommend other people do the same, poke their nose in. If we do revisit this over the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of see if our opinion changes, if the next few volumes are good or bad, and things like that. But overall, no, it's if you have the chance, go pick it up for sure. So, other than that, any closing statements from UK?
Y'all gotta read Homunculus. I think that's all that really needs to be said is that like even if you're just a little bit curious about it, just picking it up. I mean, you can get it for pretty cheap. It's a good read. Art style's beautiful.
Immaculate. I recommend honestly reading this physically because there are multi-page panels as well that like if you read it like on an e-reader or on your phone or something, you might miss out on these like double wide panels that really demonstrate various things.
Speak for yourself. I got the Z Fold 5. I open up my phone like a tablet and I'm like, man, this is beautiful.
Yeah, for me, I read this on my Kindle, so I didn't get the nice double wide pages, but that's just me. Maybe I should have like, I don't know. Can I read it sideways? Does the Kindle do that? I don't know. But definitely check it out. I'd recommend reading it physically for that or with a large screened device. But hopefully we'll be able to kind of take it from here, read more into it, and hopefully our score stands. Hopefully it continues that momentum up until the end. But without talking too much, this has been the Manga Men. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you in the next one.